Hello, welcome to Staring Down the Storm, Autism Advocacy in America. I'm your host, Tabitha Ziegler. Okay, everyone, welcome back to the podcast. This is Sarah McCorkle. She runs We Rock the Spectrum Kids Gym, and I'm going to let her take it away.
Hi, thanks, Tabitha. My name's Sarah McCorkle, as Tabitha told you. My mom and I run a kids gym in Carmel for all kids called We Rock the Spectrum. As you can hear in the name, we certainly cater to the special needs community, but we also cater to all kids. And the goal here is really to cater to all kids. It's just as important for us, for the neurodivergent kiddos, to have a safe space as it is for neurotypical kids to get to be around all different types of people, all different walks of life. And that's been really, really neat to see unfold. And then the other big piece of this that was really important to me, and you will understand this as an autism mom, is the community. Being an autism mom feels so isolating so often. And I make the analogy, it feels like we're all out here on our own little islands, and we're all waving, SOS, but we can't see each other. Yeah. Exactly. And so what's happened totally organically is that moms come in the gym, dads come in the gym, friendships are formed, kids meet each other that they wouldn't have met elsewhere because they may not be out in the community in the same settings. So the community resource to me is just as valuable as the equipment that is for the kiddos.
I would definitely agree with that. And as you said, the SOS is strong in the rural parts. And we were talking before we started, I told you where I'm from. So
yes.
Apparently that area of the state, or district, if you will, whenever you're speaking about more of the government type of sectioning up of a state, apparently our district is one of the most rural in the entire state.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I was not aware of that either. But it makes sense why there would be, very few resources, and then people don't have access to these resources. People don't know about these resources, which is a large part of why we're doing this podcast. Because like you said, it's like tiny little islands all over the place. We're screaming SOS. And how can you possibly find people if you don't know they're there, or if people aren't telling you they're there? So I'm so happy that you guys are starting this. I had actually heard about We Rock the Spectrum previously from another autism mom, which is generally the way it goes. If you want to find out about doctors, resources, what have you, you find yourself in certain situations and you're asking questions, or someone else says, oh, do you know so-and-so? Have you talked to so-and-so? Or they send you someone's number. Like, that's actually how we interviewed today, because
exactly.
I had a cancellation, and then I messaged some other autism mom, and I said, hey, had a cancellation if you want to do lunch or something. She's like, oh, talk to this person. So then she sent a group text out, and then Sarah was gracious enough to have us come down, and we're just slapping paint against the wall like normal.
Oh, yeah. She said, Tabitha has an opening. I said, who's Tabitha? Tell her to come on over.
Yeah.
Because that's, like you said, it's really important to try to get as much information out to us moms as possible. And I think all of us who were in a professional setting in our previous lives, so to speak, we're all trying to figure out how to harness that in the autism community. Because at least in my experience, some of the resources are just, they're difficult to find, they're difficult to navigate. Meanwhile, your time as a parent is, any parent has no time but what's right in front of them. But when you are a special needs parent, that is just amplified.
Right. I think it's pretty common. My experience with paperwork and all that sort of thing was, I'm a single mom. And so when I wasn't doing my day job, I was staying out underneath the stove light, filling out paperwork while my kids are asleep, because I don't want to wake them up once they're asleep. And I think that's a pretty typical parent thing. But when you're an autism parent, that is like, you do not want to wake these kids up, because they might be partying with you at 4 o'clock in the morning. And like, an autism party looks different than a normal kid party.
100%. We call those party nights.
Yeah.
Like, oh, great.
It's like, bust out the coffee. I guess we're going to do this.
Yep.
So you've also had that experience then.
Oh yeah, my son Corbin, he's 7, and actually he was kind of the catalyst and inspiration behind starting the gym. along with some other things that we may or may not chat about. But
we can talk about it all.
great. He has just his sleep patterns are just all over the place. They're unpredictable, and so there are plenty of nights where we get no sleep. And so then, to your point, if you do have a day job or you do have obligations in the morning, and people are like, well, why can't you just be there on time, or why can't you just be up and ready and fully functioning? Like, well, we were up till 4 a.m. or whatever that is. So.
Well, it's not just that, you know. I don't know if you guys have had this problem, but there's a car seat struggle right now in my family. And so my oldest one, for whatever reason, maybe it's because, you know, all my children are super independent, but along with that comes its downside. I am trying to raise them to be independent because they need to be, because I will not be around forever. However, it comes in a triple threat sometimes, and he often wants to ride the front seat. And I'm like, the front seat is for big people. It's not for small people. Even though you are almost as big as me, technically you need to be in a car seat. So then we're negotiating.
Oh yeah, which is a fool's errand, at least in my experience.
You know, it's so interesting how it works, because I grew up in the Midwest, and, you know, everything was basically like, do it or else.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, are you also a Midwesterner?
Very much, yes. Yeah, I'm from Indiana, born and raised, and when you do it or else, that...
Yeah, feel the wrath of God if you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my kids, you know, I don't want to give them an extra scapegoat because of their autism, because I think there are things that they're capable of doing. So we go through this whole process, and I'm getting a little better at navigating if it's regular kid stuff or if it's autism stuff.
I'm glad you are. I would love to.
Yeah.
Because this is a daily struggle for me. Now, as my son gets older, I'm figuring that out more. He's 7 now, so talk about going through the toddler years. To me, that's the trickiest time, because there's so much autism behavior that overlaps with toddler behavior. So right now with my 3-year-old, we don't know if she's on the spectrum or where she is. She's verbal and all of that. So not the health concerns we had with my son, but she's 3, very independent and just very... She just cannot be reasoned with. But so from a quote unquote disciplinary, and I don't necessarily mean that, but I don't mean that term.
I know what you mean.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a Midwesterner thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from a disciplinary standpoint, I don't know how to do it. Because I'm like, wait, I want to approach this how she's going to be most receptive, and in a way that's not going to unnecessarily upset her, or, you know, but I don't know where her little brain is with the neurodivergence, or with being 3, or with she's upset because her shoes won't go on, or, you know. So that's been a huge trick for me, is parenting in a way that hits both of those pieces.
Yeah, I think it's tough. Are we a similar age, probably?
Probably.
I'm 42.
I'm 36.
Okay. Yeah, my generation was definitely like, we were playing with like mud, sticks, dirt, like that sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
So we did have an entryway into computers and all of that. We were doing that in school, but I didn't start to learn with computers until I was like middle school.
Okay, yeah. So we started doing computer stuff probably, and like, it was definitely elementary school for me, but not early elementary.
Yeah. So my kids, even though they have autism, which I really think I had to take Koa. I'm sure you guys have already seen in one of the episodes Koa, because he was my little like mini videographer one day. But Koa is my one that's nonverbal or non-speaking. You know, everybody deals with it differently. Like, he does have a little bit of speech, but he also has an AAC tablet. So we're currently navigating that. But the skill set on these kids shows the intelligence.
Oh.
It is not a speaking thing.
No. Thank you for saying that.
And they are like rampant. Like, they can grab a hold of my tablet, my computer, my phone, and they're like, bloop, bloop. And I'm like, what did you do? I can't fix it.
No. Their brains understand and compute so much more than mine do. I know that for certain. My son likes to have multiple screens. You probably saw him earlier. He had 2 iPads at once. His sensory threshold is so high, and this is after lots of therapies and investigation, so to speak.
Yeah.
But his sensory threshold is so high that he actually functions better when he has multiple screens. But their brains are just moving so much more quickly. And I had an epiphany yesterday. So it's interesting that you say that speaking doesn't equate to competence. And that's a big thing just throughout the community.
Yeah.
And it's important because I think for years and years and years, if you don't talk, well, then you're dumb. Couldn't be further from
Or
the
they would
truth.
have stuck you in an institution.
Or that. Nothing, no one was assuming competence at that point. It occurred to me yesterday, my daughter said something that she'd never said before and used it in context. And it occurred to me, because my daughter is verbal, I assume that I know everything she knows. No, I don't. She tells me what she wants me to hear.
Right.
And so that's true of anyone. And that was such like an epiphany for me, is that people can know all kinds of things. They're going to choose if they want to communicate with you. So, good point.
Yeah, the choosing, right? That's an important thing, because I think a lot of times people think that people with autism are difficult. I don't necessarily think, no, this probably goes for children and adults. I don't necessarily think that it's because they're being difficult or because they want to be difficult, but maybe you're just not interesting to them, or whatever is happening is not interesting, or they don't feel that it's useful, like of what is going on in their brain as far as segmenting things. Because my children ignore me all the time. And the way I grew up, it was like, oh no, you don't ignore adults.
Right. Oh yeah, right.
So trying to navigate that with my also Midwestern parents who raised me, right? So coming from this type of like farmer generation.
Yep.
God bless my dad, because if it was us, it would be a whole different ball game, and he tries so hard with my kids.
So because of my upbringing, as you're talking, and has less to do with the generation gap, because I don't believe there is one here, but my grandparents, when you're talking, what I'm hearing is like how I would describe my grandparents.
Yeah.
But I would also agree that I know growing up, they would not have handled this situation the way they are now, but they are trying. Yeah. Very hard, and it is very hard.
Yeah, I think it's easier for my mom, and it probably maybe sometimes, I don't know if I should say it that way. I want to be careful with my language here, because, you know, everybody has a different personality, and we have a lot of dads that may stay at home that maybe are more of the nurturers. So
my husband did for years.
There you go. But I think sometimes people still think of women as the caregivers and a little bit more compassionate. My mom is like your typical grandma. She's like, oh my God, what can I do? How can I help you? Let me take your pain away. Let me do it for you. If you need the starburst, the hug, the bottle, like grandma will do it all. And I have to tell my mom, I'm like, Mom, look, they're capable. I know you want to do everything for them because that's how you show your love.
Right.
But like, let them be independent and let them do their thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just how the autism world just changes so much from, I mean, day to day almost. And so it is fascinating, the generation gaps, and then the people that are, that are making big changes to try to meet autistic people where they are, which I think is really, really cool. And even, yes, you want your kiddos to be independent as much as they can and be capable, but good on her for not going, well, they're autistic, so they probably can't do it. It's more like, I love you, so let me show you this.
Yeah. I think, that's probably a really big conversation that needs to be had right now, considering everything that's going on with RFK and all these questions about capacity and competence and usefulness and all of that. It seems to be a bombshell in the autism community that we need to speak about more, because how are people going to know about it if they're not hearing it from us? Like, they need to hear it from the moms, the dads, because maybe the children can't speak for themselves, but also the autistic adults, all of the family members, the community members that fan out, that support these people, and like to really project that advocacy of, wait, the bar has been moved in an unhealthy direction.
That's a great point too. Because if you're an older person and you're getting your information from the news largely, it's going to look a lot different than from an autism mom. Because I don't think those things collide often. But I'm sure you can speak to this as I can with my son. I see him do things that are extremely impressive all the time. He might not be speaking about it. He might not even be looking at me when he does it. Mm-hmm. But he's listening always, comprehending always. Mm-hmm. And I think we've seen that too in some autistic adults, where when they do gain the ability to communicate, however that looks
Yeah.
that looks for them. Might be spelling, might be an AAC device, might be speaking, might be sign language, what have you. There are some brilliant autistic individuals in the world. In my opinion, far more than we have any clue about. And I'm hoping that although the RFK thing it sparked a conversation that maybe wasn't from a great place, I am hoping that we are inspired to advocate differently because of that, and more people can learn about how brilliant some of these kiddos are.
Well, I can tell that it's sparking conversation because I probably didn't tell you this, but I had not been on a lot of the different social media sites because I'm older and I just didn't know how to work it. I didn't know how to use it. So I have a nonprofit. So after I started my nonprofit, the idea was get on all the different social media sites. So, anywhere that people may be looking, at least you have some sort of a presence for people to find you if they want to. And then there are some things that happened in the country and some things that shifted. And then I really flew into advocacy and activism and started the podcast and all that. So I have some of my personal social media sites under my name that I say what I think. And I made a post about autism not too long ago. But I'm just normal, run-of-the-mill, doesn't know much about social media, 40s type bracket. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm trying. I'm figuring it out. I must have been doing something right because talk about sparking conversation. I posted something on TikTok and it's like 16,000 views and climbing.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And I don't really understand the algorithms and all that sort of thing. That part's not important. But the fact that the conversation clearly needs and wants, like the needs and wants are there.
Yes.
People are curious. And I don't think it's just the autistic community. I think it's everyone. Like when you say certain things about a group of people, I think by nature, by necessity, they're curious now. So they want to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, so many thoughts on that. But one, congratulations on that TikTok. That's awesome.
I know, it might be the only one that I ever get 16,000 views or whatever. But the point is, the conversations are starting. And there are so many comments. And I will give them this, like, it's not partisan. Like, and people are being fairly pleasant. I was surprised. I was really shocked. Like, nobody is really going, like, for the jugular. Like, they're sort of behaving themselves, even if they disagree, which I think is great considering the current status of our country. It's like, there need to be things that are going on that show we are all Americans and we all have, like, a similar baseline.
Yes.
Of the things that we care about, like what are those things, and that it crosses party lines.
Yes, absolutely. And it's the nonpartisan thing is super fascinating because you can choose which party you affiliate with. You don't get to choose if your child is autistic or not. And so then you have to decide how you're going to navigate it. And you can navigate it for the better of your child, or you can navigate it with the, with that party in mind. And I think most parents, because they're parents first, choose to navigate it for their child most. And I think that's where you get a lot of that conversation and curiosity, is because they might have aligned with something their whole life, and now they're thrown this. And they have to rethink everything for the greater good of their child.
Well, I think it's just interesting in general. I consider myself a humanist first, really, above everything. And I also have 3 little kids with autism. And I also am from a very deep red Republican part of Indiana. And I've been around these people. I've grown up around these people. And I find that it is most effective when you're talking about things like this that really matter to you, if you can appeal to people's humanity. I'm not saying you're going to be able to reach everyone, but I'm just saying, like, if you really care deeply about something, like for me, this is sort of a life and death thing for my family. Like, if things really shift in a really negative direction, that will definitely impact my family. And I just want to make very clear that I am just doing everything I possibly can to spread like good information, good accurate information, interview as many people as I possibly can. I don't know it all. I certainly don't. But I am like actively seeking these people out. Like anybody and everybody that wants to talk to me about autism, neurodiversity, whatever, like please find a way to get a hold of me, and you need to be on this podcast because we need to talk about these things so that people understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody has a varying level of opinions, understanding, resources, all of those things. And that's why we have to talk.
Yeah.
Because we weren't talking a few years ago, or at least I know I wasn't. And so I feel much more equipped to have these conversations and feel like I am a resource for the community, and that the gym is a resource for the community too.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the gym and
Sure.
what you guys do here.
Awesome. Thanks. So we are open 7 days a week for starters. And in general, what we do 90% of the time is open play. So kiddos come into the gym. We have a huge space that's all laid out very intentionally. Somebody made this comment, and I've repeated it so many times. They said, we can tell this place was designed by moms.
Yep.
And we're like, what a great compliment, because you're right, it was designed by mom. So we have an infant and toddler area.
Nice.
That's, separated enough. We have a calming room, we have arts and crafts, we have an imagination station that has a bunch of pretend play kitchens and baby dolls and all that fun stuff. But the kind of, the draw or the things that people see online is the big back gym. And all of that, every piece of equipment in there is designed for sensory processing. And that's important for everybody.
Yeah.
We all need some sort of sensory processing, but of course some of us more than others. And so that's the big back gym is really where a lot of our kids spend their time. And it's a 2-hour pass, and we have an all-day pass option, but to be honest, 2 hours is usually enough time for all parties involved. But we also do birthday parties, but something that's relevant to say here is we also host private events for therapy companies.
Oh, really?
All kinds of, yes, it's been wonderful. So a woman reached out to me last week because she's creating an online platform for the parents that she serves, parents of the kids she serves. But she wants to do an in-person meetup.
Nice.
And wants to use the gym for that.
Cool.
Absolutely, bring it on. So it's been a really nice in-person place for some of these parents to connect. And also, their kids are very safe, and there's plenty to do for them. And I know you could probably speak to this. Let's say you need to go to a conference or a meeting or something, and you're like, okay, what am I going to do with my kids? In this setting, they can play, and you can meet, or however that looks. We have classes.
So hypothetically, you would host a meeting with a couple adults, say in this side room while the kids are playing. How would that look for someone?
Yeah, so this past week, actually, we had a nonprofit she ended up utilizing the front lobby area. We did a mama meetup, and it was Neurodiversity Connection is her nonprofit, which I'll get you her information too. But she had brought in a Gestalt language processor, speech pathologist, who's phenomenal, and I can give you her information
let's talk to her too.
Oh my gosh, these are brilliant women. But we had, I think, 10 moms, and so they were here for that. And then they had the option when they were getting tickets if they needed childcare or not. So what Jessica, the founder of that foundation, did was she knew exactly who needed childcare and how many kiddos were going to be here, and she had a 1-to-1 ratio for all the kids, but it was already paid for because they had selected that when they signed up. So they have the gym space, they have a safe spot, and childcare, for that. And they don't have to worry about what's my kid doing? Is he running away? Whatever.
That's interesting that you say that, because I also run a nonprofit, and it was never with the intent to start a nonprofit, but I'm from a rural area. There weren't a lot of programs, and I guess I'm just one of those people. And so I was like, no, I think I'll just do something.
Yeah.
And so I started doing something, which the first thing was a music festival.
Oh, nice.
And then, we started doing outdoor events because my kids seem to really enjoy outdoor events. But the first thing that I would do is go around and scout and make sure that it was safe and then make it fun.
Oh, yeah.
Because if it's not safe first, it can't be fun. And I do have one that elopes, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. I always say my little one. Technically, he's the middle one because him and his sister are twins, but she came out last. But she's taller than him.
So he's the little one.
Yeah. So his nickname is Bean because, like, he's not really small. I told you, like, my kids
Yeah.
are giants. But of the three, he's the small one.
I love that.
Yeah. So, yeah, he's super quiet, super stealthy, and there have been a handful of times he's gotten away from me. We live in the country, thank God, though the road has a lot of traffic that goes really fast, which is nerve-wracking. And one day he got out. I don't know if his sibling let him out or how that happened exactly. But we know these things, like, they're not intentional. You turn your back for a second, and he was halfway down the road. And I had to make the decision. I'm like, do I chase him down on foot or do I hop in my car?
Yeah.
And those type of things are just nerve-wracking and terrifying.
Nerve-wracking and terrifying to say the least.
Yeah.
My son has, I like how you said stealthy because that would be Corbin also. He would be real quiet and find the way out. But there have been a couple of times, and I don't know about you, but I feel like the worst mom on the planet.
Yeah.
And then it's like you talk to other moms, oh, this happened. Oh, this happened. We are not alone in that. These kids are really, it's part of what they really feel like they need to do.
And not just to mention that besides the awful feeling of dread and all that, your heart is in your throat. You're just like, oh, where is this kid?
Oh.
And you're trying not to panic, which I think is also a Midwestern thing, because it's like, all right, don't panic. Everything will be like, we will figure out a solution even though someone's leg is hanging off of them.
Yep.
But man, just all the air gets sucked out of the room when you're like, where is this kid? And you're looking around, you're like, okay, let me do my checks. Like, is he here? Is he here? Is he under the bed? Is he around the corner? Does he have, like a clothes basket on top of his head and he's hiding?
Right.
Like the type of things that my kids do sometimes that they think is hysterical and funny that like produces a massive amount of anxiety is just off the chart.
That's a great point too. But yeah, even today, I told you we're house hunting right now, but one of the first things we do is, okay, let's look at the crossroad. How busy is it?
Yep.
Can we put in a fence if there's no fence? Even if we can put in a fence, is it one that Corbin can climb over? Just all these considerations.
How far back from the road is it?
Yes, exactly. And that was actually one of the reasons this morning we're like, no, go with this house. It's too close to a busy crossway.
Yep.
And it's all these considerations. That's just one example that we are constantly making in our brains of how we keep our kids as safe as possible.
Not to mention you have to lock it down like Fort Knox. I don't know about you guys, but like I was a flight attendant before this.
Oh wow, cool. No.
So, there's a little bit of stealthiness that comes in with that. That's why they don't let flight attendants participate in those like what was that show? The Amazing Race, I think.
Oh, because you're too.
Now you could drop us in the middle of a jungle and we'd find our way out.
That's pretty cool.
So it is a cool skill to have. Like I have a cool skill set because of these type of things. However, even though I'm a bit of a MacGyver, like the hoops I'd had to jump through, like the magnetic locks, the locks on the door. And if someone were to come in your house with the locks on, say, like the outward portion of the door, it might look like you were trying to lock them in, which you're not. You're just trying to make sure that they don't get into that room because maybe there's something that is sharp, chemicals, what have you, because they will do it. They will figure out a way.
That's another, you're making all these great points. Of course you are. But for one, yes, I have gates all over my house for different reasons, and locks and all of that kind of thing. What did you say right before that? That you have a good like skill set. You can MacGyver things, but they still figure it out. Yeah, that is Mike Corbin. That's such a good point, because I'm over here going, why can't I think through this? And it's like, well, I'm thinking through it in the way that my brain does. His brain's thinking through this totally differently, and he's figuring it out every time. I can't tell you how many times we've tried a new lock or tried a new strategy or all these different, visuals and different phrases, all kinds of stuff. So
I will tell you this. I don't tell a lot of people this because it's fairly new. But I also recently got diagnosed with autism.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Why not?
But it's interesting because, I've done all this work with children. And so I think, if anything, that's sort of my area, not expertise. But if you want to say expertise, that's my area right now. So technically we have 4 people in the house that have autism. And I think it probably is helpful in some ways because now I know there were some things that my children were doing that I was like, you're like a little scientist trying to figure out your kids constantly, like how they work, how their brains work.
Yes.
So eventually I did genetics testing, and they showed me, the helix, the chromosomal variants, all these things. Lots of paperwork. Because I'm like, I want to see facts.
Oh yeah, same.
And I was also inseminated, so I think my parents were like, "Are you sure it wasn't that guy?" And I'm like, "No," because they showed me, here's all this stuff. It for sure came from my side of the family. And that's essentially what, that pushed it over the edge for me, because I'm like, you know what? If I know for certain that I gave a chromosomal variant to at least 2 of my children, because my older one doesn't have it. It's just the twins. Which is interesting.
That is interesting.
Because technically, I don't know if you want to say same parents, because it was a donor. It's like, I'm a single parent, and that's a whole other side conversation for those people that got inseminated. There's different language for that too. But it's like, I know for a fact that I gave it to my kids.
Sure.
Deal with that. Not have shame about it, because there's all of that goes on with it too. Like, what did I do? I took all my vitamins. Like, how could this happen? Blah, blah, blah. And once you finally cross that hurdle of okay, that's not important. It's not important how they got it, which is why I think this whole conversation right now that's going on is important, because these parents have enough guilt, so lay off. And most likely, they might also be on the spectrum too. We had no idea of knowing just how many people are on the spectrum, because when we were in school, if you weren't an effective student, you're
a bad
lazy.
kid.
You're a bad kid, you're lazy. Well, now they're finding out maybe some of us had autism, ADHD, dyslexia, not making an excuse for it. Maybe some kids just are lazy, and that's fine. But maybe there was a reason some of these things were going on.
Yes.
And
and oh my gosh, so many things to unpack there. First, I hope that you have worked through the shame that you were feeling, only because that didn't even occur to me when you said, I gave it to my kids. It didn't even cross my mind. But of course, I would feel the same way. I mean, we do that to ourselves so destructively, I guess. So good for you for being aware of I have to get through this, because I am not in fault here.
Well, I think it's an important thing to talk about, because I think autism looks differently for everyone, and that's why it's a spectrum. You don't just get autism in certain communities. You have Black, Hispanic, Asian, Native American, Caucasian, Middle Eastern. Autism is in all of these different communities. We need to start having these conversations so that we're not singling people out. It's not just the poor communities. Maybe you're not aware of some of the children in the richer, more affluent communities. They also have autism.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not on Medicare or Medicaid or what have you. So I think it's a little unfair to single people out because of, where they may fall on a socioeconomic line. But I assure you that, this place is in Carmel, not Carmel, but of all the different places in Indiana, Carmel is up there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
People have money in Carmel, Fishers, Noblesville, what have you. That's why you have more resources here. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that there's necessarily more or less children that have autism here, but maybe people may flock to these communities if they can afford it because of the resources that are here.
100%, we hear that a lot.
But it doesn't mean that autism isn't in the rural communities, and the more African American neighborhoods. It is truly everywhere. We can't be singling people out.
No, not at all. And also, when you told me that you had been diagnosed with autism, I said congratulations, and I mean that, because to me, and this is in my experience being around so many families, we all have a neurotype, all of us do, and we might not be quote unquote autistic, we might not be on the spectrum, but we might be neurodivergent in some way. None of us are the same, and there's a lot of like you said, when we were in elementary school, it's like, well, if you're doing this, this, or this, you're just a bad kid, or you're lazy, or whatever that is. But we don't need to take if you've got kids 1 through 5 on a neurodivergent scale, we don't all need to be 3s.
Mm-hmm.
The 1s can be 1s in their own way. The 5s can be 5s. And to me, and I don't know how I don't even know how this works out. This is where my brain goes down rabbit holes.
Right.
So I'm sorry.
It's okay. Rabbit holes are good.
I'm passionate about as much individualized care as is possible. Before I knew what I knew, I just wasn't doing, without getting into hairy details there, but I wasn't doing as much of that for my son as he needed. And now that I am, I see him thrive. And that does not take away the fact that it's a challenge, or that times are hard, or, progress is not linear in any, but I think there's really something to be said about embracing all these neurotypes. It's not a negative thing. As a matter of fact, I mean, in a lot of ways, I do perceive autism as a positive thing. My son has a huge heart. He's a very smart, he's a smiley guy. Like, man, Corby looks like he's having a great time, So I wish and I hope that moving forward we can lean into more of that individualism. And I know that gets tricky with public schools and staffing and things like that, but I think it's necessary if we want to really get these kids where they need to be.
Well, I think it's a conversation of value, because that seems to be what's on the chopping block, if you will, or like disseminating who has value and who does not in our society. I was an older mother. Technically, I was considered geriatric because they've never changed that language, which, someone should get on that, because I don't know percentile what's up there, but there are quite a few moms that are getting pregnant like 35 plus.
Almost a lot of working moms, they get their career established and then take a break and have kids. I mean, I think that's super common.
Well, because we're trying our best to have it together, be able to afford children, because children are super expensive. Which brings me into another point. Like, I was happy to pay taxes when I was a single person, and I was really getting smacked with the taxes. But I had nieces and nephews, and I felt like there are certain things in a society that matters. Now, I also did spend a considerable amount of time in Europe. So, I have a different knowledge base that way too. But I feel like I felt really comfortable that my tax dollars were going towards things like this. And I also had a cousin that had something going on.
Sure.
He's older. So like genetics testing and things like that it was just going to be too expensive for my aunt.
Sure.
But we grew up together. And yeah, speaking of happy guys, like he's almost 7 foot tall, like 400 pounds. Like he's like gentle giant. My kids love to climb on him like he's a mountain.
I love that.
Yeah. But, the joy that some of these people can bring the rest of us, that for whatever reason is just easy for them, that is actually like a contribution to society. Like there are ways like this.
Absolutely.
Or like amazing musicians that, maybe they can't speak, but they can play one heck of a piano.
100%. One of the things that we kind of touched on this earlier, but one of my favorite things about my son is he doesn't care what he looks like. He doesn't care how he's dressed. Do I try to make him look extra cute because he's always cute? Sure. But he doesn't care if somebody's looking at him weird. That's on the rest of society.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really impressive skill to have.
That's a hard skill.
Oh, yeah.
Especially for females. Like I have to give my daughter a little shout out here. The independence in my children is strong. Yeah, I appreciate it, but like you said, it can be challenging. My daughter does not love clothes, just really any clothes. Kind of hates it. We've kind of like navigated that. We're finding ways that we can do that. She's right now into like the Hawaiian button-up shirts.
Okay.
They're a little looser. Does not like things that are constrictive. Doesn't love shoes. Every once in a while, maybe she'll put the shoes on without the socks, like things like that. Does not like her hair combed.
Oh my gosh, my daughter hates it.
Doesn't care what she looks like. But for women, because when we were growing up, all the things that you're taught about from like early, you're a girl. Essentially, you come out of the womb And you can start to walk, and then people start critiquing you, and they're like, don't do this, don't do that, don't say
100%.
this, don't say that, don't wear this, don't wear that. And I mean, it's not fair for any of the kids, but imagine for an autistic kid that's like, I don't understand your rationale behind this.
Exactly.
It doesn't serve me. Like, why are you going to make me do this thing that just does not make rational sense to my brain, so therefore I'm not doing it.
Exactly.
Period. Just not doing it.
Because it doesn't
Don't
make
care.
rational sense.
Don't care. Not doing it. Don't
Yeah.
care if you like it. I will sit on the floor for 5 hours. We're not going anywhere. I'm staging a sit-in.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Yeah.
You have some of those?
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, everything you're saying is just so spot on with either my life or people that I know. But just thinking of my daughter, again, being 3 and being verbal. I don't know where she is in the neurodivergent space, but she sure beats to the marches to the beat of her own drum.
Yeah.
And she could care less who's watching. And I have to kind of rein in and it's not even necessarily how I feel, it's just what's so ingrained in me.
Yeah.
So when I want to comb her hair, she doesn't want me to. I'm like, oh, so pretty. I'm like, wait, no.
Yeah, stop that.
She doesn't care about that, and nor do I really, It's just what's in our head. So, yeah.
Yeah, my mom cares, and I know it's because of all this multi-generational stuff of, training how to be a woman and what that looks like. With my daughter, I think I do that too. I have my moments, but there were a lot of things that when I was a kid I hated, like the white stockings for church. Those like tights, the white tights.
Yes.
Everybody had them underneath the dress. Like, I had nightmares of that. I hated it. I would sit there, and my skin was crawling.
Oh yeah.
I was just like, ew. So some of these things I think is how I ended up getting myself tested, because I would see my daughter and I'm like, I remember a time.
Yeah. So I had 2 big thoughts there. One, I got to give my mom a huge shout out because she really embraced me. I was very, very weird growing up. After I don't know that I don't know where I fall on any sort of scale. I don't believe I'm autistic, but I do know that I did a lot of really weird stuff, and I was very fascinated in experimenting. And there were a lot of like, superficial things that I'm like, why? I don't understand that, and I need to know the why behind everything. So shout out to my mom. She really leaned into that for me and really let me explore and be myself. But I'm thinking, okay, so your mom gets you up. Here's your church dress. Here's your tights. You put them on. Forget about focusing in church, listening to anything else, being nice. I mean, all you're gonna do is sit there and go, these tights are driving me nuts. So what was more important?
Right.
But I don't. There's no faulting people at that time or even now. No guilt. But I'm just thinking we lose if their sensory needs aren't met. We lose engagement completely.
Yeah. Well, my daughter had a total meltdown. And in fairness, this is not a knock to my mother. I think all the moms
No,
were doing
of
it,
course,
because
yeah.
that was the expectation. Now we go to church and nobody's wearing a dress.
Great point.
So like back then, it was very much, and like I said, come from a rural community, but I think the standard was basically like, most of the women were wearing a dress or a skirt. By the time you got into pantsuits, people were like, oh, I heard with the pantsuit on. Oh my God.
Oh yeah. It was like like a walk on the promenade in the morning. How fancy can we all look? How happy is our family and all that. So
yeah, so hats off to my mom too, because coming from that type of situation, being able now, it's still hard for her sometimes, but I see her once in a while kind of taking a breath and like, all right, okay. Like, she doesn't want this. Like, Nayeli needs a break. And Nayeli is a bear in the morning anyway. Like, she's like trying to wake a grizzly, which I think is hysterical.
Yeah.
Because she keeps putting the cover over her head and she's like, no, not going. And so I'm like, just leave her. And normally what happens is I get all my stuff together. The boys are in the car. Everybody's ready to go. And if I'm lucky, I've got her diaper and her shorts on.
You're just describing my life in the
No shirt, no shoes, no nothing. If I'm lucky, shorts. Like, if I can get the diaper on, that's a good day. So I'm like, I'm just going to get everybody ready, get my stuff ready, get my coffee ready, then I'm ready to go. And then I'm like, all right, sis, are you coming to school? But she's like, no, blanket over her head. I was like, all right, bye then. And then I get out the door, I shut the door, I don't leave her, like, wait
Of course
outside.
not.
I wait outside. And now I instruct my parents too as well, because they come down in the mornings and they're like trying to help. Like, we don't really need their help, but they want to, so that's fine.
Yeah.
But my daughter, like, she'll wait us out, and then all of a sudden, the door will open. She'll have her little bag. She's got like a little purse with some things in it. Like, she probably doesn't have a shirt on. She probably hopefully has her diaper on every once in a while, maybe not.
Yeah.
And she's like just coming out in her birthday suit, whatever. But we normally get dressed outside. Or maybe she goes in the car seat with no shirt on, and then we put the shirt on right before we go into the school. Like, the objective is to get the child in the car seat to go to the place that you need to go to.
100%. You really just described so many of my mornings. And you can probably then agree with this, that in my brain, I'm going, if the little grump will sleep, I can be way more productive for the first 2 hours of my day than trying to fight the little grump and get everything else done.
Oh, the other day, it's interesting how their brains work, because you go through this trial and error of, like, sorting. What is the thing that they need or that they want? Sometimes it's simple. So the other day, I was like, all right, she doesn't want clothes. She went to take the whole big comforter with her. I was like, no, let's not do that. That's not really going to fit well in the car. So I was like, let me make a switch. And I have noticed she likes soft things. So we have one of those, like, little Walmart blankets.
Yeah.
Like the $5 roll up that, they
they're
have
super soft.
random things. So my kids love Halloween. So I got a bunch of those little, like, Halloween soft blankets. And she loves skeletons. So on her tablet, she will always ask me for, like, spooky skeleton or scary skeleton.
Nice.
Their favorite movies, Hocus Pocus.
That's fun.
Those are my kids, yeah. So I'm like, how about this blanket? And it was a little skeleton blanket. She's like, yeah. So I wrap it around her like a cape, because she's also into the superheroes. And I'm like painting a picture of this kid.
Right? Like, oh yeah.
Like,
yep.
WWE is in our future.
Yeah.
So we like pin this on. I take a little like potato chip clip. Here we go. We've got a superhero. Off to the car we go.
Yep. I love everything. There were so many things there that you said that are just fantastic, because you took the time to go, okay, what is it that, and it was such a silly to us, right?
Yeah.
But a little thing, not silly to her at all, but how much did that change her day for you to take the time to do that and to think about it? Because, and again, no fault to anybody else. I think we all know picking our battles is like so amplified in this community. But how maybe many other people might have chosen the other way and just fought. And now your kid's super upset, and it wasn't super difficult to find the blanket and do, make the cape. And now her day's easier, but guess what? Now your day's easier.
Well, spoiler alert, I have gone the other way.
Well, of course, yeah. At some point we all have,
We
right?
all have, and that's why we're having these conversations.
Yeah.
So for the people that are new into this, that are like ripping their hair out right now, like, I don't understand. Why is it this way?
Yeah.
Like, know that this is normal, that you're going through these processes, and eventually you will get to the superhero part, and you will understand it, and you'll be like, thank goodness.
You know what? Great point. I'm glad you said that.
We are at a pivotal point in American history. We do not have the luxury to remain silent. Programs are disappearing every day. We hope that this podcast raises awareness and sparks a sense of advocacy in you. We all can make a difference. The important thing is to start. See you next time.